Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 13th of October 2021. All right, everyone, let's get into it. So, big announcement out of Stripe today. The global payments company. A lot of you will be familiar with Stripe. They're huge. I mean, $100 billion plus company. Not public yet, actually, still a private company, but they service a lot of the world's kind of payment infrastructure here. So, they announced that they're going to be starting a new crypto team. So, if you are interested in, joining Stripe's crypto team, you can go check out these roles. This will, of course, be linked in the YouTube description. But there's not much more information given here. I guess, given that they're a payments company, they're going to be doing payments-focused crypto stuff, which makes sense. But what I wanted to talk about, and I kind of wrote about this in the newsletter today as well, is basically the fact that we've seen a lot of these, bigger kind of Web 2 companies, these institutions, these non-crypto native companies adding a crypto division, right? It's like they need to do this for a number of different reasons. One of the biggest reasons is that if they don't, then it's going to get disrupted by the kind of companies that do. And I spoke about this the other day in another Daily Gwei newsletter titled The Great Brain Drain, which is talking about how I believe there's a lot of people going from the Web 2 world to Web 3. They're kind of leaving their Web 2 job behind and going to work within Web 3. And I'm sure these big companies are seeing this, right? They're seeing this kind of talent drain, this brain drain, and they're thinking, wow, okay, we have to stop the bleeding here. We have to plug the hole. Why are these people leaving? And they're realizing that they're leaving to go work at crypto companies. So, I mean, a very smart move on Stripe's behalf here. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it took them this long to integrate crypto into what they're doing or to start a crypto team. Obviously, we had PayPal, I think it was late last year, kind of do stuff with crypto. Robinhood as well. Stripe seems to be late to the game in terms of, I guess, giant kind of payment related companies. I mean, they're not the latest. Of course, the latest to the game will be the massive financial institutions like banks and then things like that. And, when they integrate crypto, it's going to look very different to when someone, a company like Stripe does it. But still, the trend is there. The trend is very, very clear. If you do not have a kind of crypto focus and you're a mega company, especially a company that is handling money in any form, whether that be kind of its payments infrastructure or custody or kind of doing financial services, anything in general, if you don't have a crypto strategy for your company and you aren't actively thinking about and integrating crypto products into your own products and services, well, you're going to get left behind and you're going to get disrupted. And the funny thing is that I think a lot of these companies are very aware that of being disrupted, because they were the disruptors over the last 20 years. A lot of these internet native kind of Web 2 companies, where they came in, they disrupted massive existing institutions and companies and basically put them out of business. Classic example being Netflix putting Blockbuster out of business, essentially, and just streaming services in general, putting a lot of pay TV kind of not out of service, but essentially forcing them to kind of adapt at the end of the day. So the same thing's going to happen here. Crypto is going to force these companies to adapt, whether they like it or not, because they're going to get disrupted if they don't. And I think they're much more aware of it than than the ones that they disrupted over the last 20 years. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Stripe kind of I guess pumps out from here. If I had to guess, I think that they would just do crypto payments to start with within Stripe, be able to accept ETH and BTC, for example, and stable coins. I think just doing BTC, ETH, and stable coins is kind of already servicing pretty much the majority of the market. And then you can maybe add other tokens over time or do things with other tokens over time, but I don't know if that's really something that they're going to focus on. Because at the end of the day, most people hold ETH, BTC, and stablecoins anyway, and there's much less people who hold any other individual tokens. So maybe they just do stablecoins. Maybe they create their own stablecoin. Who knows? I actually think that we're going to see even more stablecoins come to market. There's already too many of them, but we're going to see even more of them come to market. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as well, and how regulators view it too. Because for example, if Stripe issued their own stablecoin, I don't know how that works. I don't know what that looks like in the US or any other country for that matter. But the kind of regulators could look at that and be like, okay, well, Stripe's issuing its own money, right? For example, just like how they looked at Facebook's Libra, right? Where or DM, whatever it's called these days, where they kind of had an issue with it because they're like, okay, well, Facebook's a private company and they're about to issue their own money. So it's interesting when you kind of look at it from that point of view. But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of the continuation of more and more of these Web 2 non-crypto native companies integrating crypto into their products and services. So I'm excited to see what Stripe does here. In other news, I guess Coinbase is obviously a crypto native company, but I think it's funny, they're so big now that they're kind of like not just crypto. They do a lot of things outside of crypto, and they bring a lot of non-crypto companies and people that aren't into crypto yet into crypto. So they're pretty much like the front door for for most people in the US. But they announced today that they're going to be integrating NFTs directly into their exchange or into their platform, and this comes off the back of FTX doing this. So FTX launched their own NFT kind of marketplace the other day. So Coinbase is going to be kind of integrating with Ethereum first, and they plan to go multi-chain. Not sure what that means. Like, does that mean they're going to do like all these L1s, or are they going to do L2s? They've already signaled before that they're going to be integrating with L2s and for the non-NFT stuff. But I also assume that they're going to integrate things like Immutable X for sure, like Ethereum layer 2 focused NFT platforms and whatever's popular really at the end of the day. So this is actually pretty huge because Coinbase has a massive user base, especially in the US. Tens of millions of users, and during the markets when the market's hot, these users become very, very active as well. So you have like a lot of these users also have never kind of interacted with DeFi or NFTs or anything on chain. A lot of them just buy tokens on an exchange and keep them there, believe it or not. So I guess Coinbase is acting again as a front door for people to kind of play around with these products that they haven't played around with before. And we saw this recently with their Coinbase Lend product. They tried to basically give their users 4% kind of like yield on their stablecoins by using DeFi under the hood. But then the SEC came knocking and said, no, you can't do that. So I don't think the SEC has any power here with NFTs, but it's going to be funny to see if any regulators try to stop Coinbase from doing this. I doubt it, to be honest. It's be very, very hard for them to do so. And that would be like a gross overreach if they try to do it. But I mean, I don't put anything past these regulators these days. They seem to be choking down anything crypto. But still, there's going to be a lot of new users that come into crypto, that come into kind of like the on-chain ecosystem because of this. And this is how we get mass adoption at the end of the day. Whether we like it or not, most people want to use kind of like these familiar services, even if they're centralized, to access a lot of this stuff. They don't want to have to deal with, MetaMask and, installing MetaMask or installing a crypto wallet and like seed phrases and having ETH for gas and all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but maybe you'd be disappointed to hear that most users are not going to ever do that. They're going to play with the most abstracted away kind of thing. But for me, the draw of this technology has always been the choice, because you have a choice. You can either play with DeFi on your own, do it all from your own wallet, non-custodially, and decide which apps you want to use and which ones you don't want to use and have exposure to, or you go through an intermediary like Coinbase who does that all for you and just gives you a very simple kind of like interface to interact with all these sorts of stuff. Both approaches are fine. Obviously, I prefer the former approach, doing everything on my own, but most people just aren't ready for that, and most people just don't want to do that. Like, especially when it comes to financial kind of like services and financial kind of like related activity, most people don't want to manage their own money. Like, as much as we like all of us within DeFi do and all of us within crypto do, most people just don't want to manage their own money. They don't want to even think about it. They don't want to think about all these different things with financial services. They're happy to do the bare minimum or to outsource it to someone else. They're happy to just keep their money in an account that's paying them a high yield, or they're happy just kind of like investing in a stock index, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And especially as you get older, you change how you invest to. Like, younger people typically invest in a kind of like more speculative fashion because they don't have much to lose. But as you get older, you have a family and things like that. Well, you're in like wealth preservation mode, right? You're being very conservative about it. These people especially are not going to want to be a cowboy on, Ethereum layer 1 or layer 2 and just aping into the newest kind of like degen farm. Some of them will, but a lot of them will not want to take those sorts of risks, and that's totally fine. And that's exactly what Coinbase and other intermediaries offer to these customers. I know NFTs is kind of like different to DeFi, of course, and I think NFTs definitely appeals to a much younger crowd as well, not just from the speculative standpoint, but also from just the way the kind of like NFT ecosystem is growing, like collectibles and memes and things like that. Definitely appeals to the younger crowd. But there's a lot of stuff happening in the art scene that appeals to all ages. So Coinbase may be just the front door and for people to get exposure to this digital art that of all ages that kind of like want to buy that. So yeah, I mean, this is really cool. And a cool thing about this is it's not just like Coinbase hosting the NFT. Coinbase selling the NFTs and buying the NFTs. It's actually going to be a peer-to-peer marketplace. So this is pretty much a direct OpenSea competitor, I would say, maybe, or maybe they're integrating with OpenSea. I'm not sure. I think I remember Coinbase Ventures being an OpenSea investor. I may be wrong there. So maybe maybe it's even in their announcement post. I don't remember seeing it in their announcement post here, if they were actually integrating with an existing kind of like thing. No, I don't think so. I think they're going to build their own kind of thing here. Maybe they do source NFTs and stuff under the hood with OpenSea's API or something like that. I'm not entirely sure there, but definitely seems like they're building their own kind of thing here. And you can sign up for early access if you want. It's only going to be available to US to start, so unfortunately I won't be able to access it. The one time where the US actually gets access to something that I don't. But yeah, definitely go join the waitlist if you're interested in kind of like getting access to Coinbase's NFT ecosystem here. So Brantley from the ENS team has kind of like updated the login.xyz website, or at least shared an update here where you can see that I teased this last time, that this login.xyz update just had like sign in with Ethereum coming soon. Well, if you scroll down, you'll now see there's more information. So basically they explain what sign in with Ethereum is. You can read this spec, you can join the Discord channel, sign up for community calls, look at all the updates and research. You can kind of like see who's involved with it, like who's leading it, the Ethereum Foundation, ENS, and Spruce, and the supporters of it as well. So this is really cool to see a little update here to this website. And basically there's also a kind of like GitHub repositories as well. And Brantley goes on to explain kind of like all the kind of like features, and there's obviously going to be more coming as this kind of thing progresses on, but it seems like signing with Ethereum is definitely making a lot of progress, a lot of good progress as well. And it seems like it's going to be integrated into more and more of the kind of like Web2 services. I mean, it's already integrated into pretty much all the Web3 services, but Web2 is what we really want to hit. So, I mean, this is something that I'm super excited about, definitely because it falls outside of the traditional kind of like stuff that we've all kind of been looking at, like DeFi and NFTs. It falls into like the quote unquote Web3 area, which is still very nascent, but maturing at a rapid pace and getting very, very exciting at a rapid pace as well. So yeah, definitely go check out the website for more information here. Maybe sign up to the community call if you want, and check out the updates and research section here as well. All right, so zkSync has posted an update today on their zkEVM. So they've titled this "The zkEVM Era is Coming," and they have launched something called Unisync, which is the first migrated Solidity dApp on the zkSync 2.0 testnet. So it's a port of Uniswap V2, and it's basically a full application running on an EVM compatible zk rollup. So, I've talked a lot about StarkWare recently and about how StarkNet's, there's their kind of like EVM compatible zk rollup is going live very soon, or going on mainnet in November. And that's very, very, very exciting. But they're not the only game in town. zkSync is building zkEVM as well, and so is Hermes, which I think there's an update coming from Hermes very soon too. So it seems like all of these teams are getting to kind of like mainnet capacity in a similar kind of like time frame, which is super, super exciting. And yeah, I mean, you can play with Unisync right now. You just launched a dApp here. You can request some testnet tokens. I think it's on, I don't remember what testnet it's on, Rinkeby or Ropsten. I got some tokens. I played around with it. Transactions were extremely cheap. They were instant. It was amazing to see this all kind of like working here. And in this kind of like blog post, they detail kind of the approach that they took, which they're calling a Solidity first approach. As I've kind of talked about before, Solidity needs to be supported. Like, you can't just basically expect everyone to want to build their apps from the ground up. That's definitely not going to work, and it takes much less effort to port your app once you have like EVM compatibility and also Solidity compatibility here. So really, really great to see this update from the Matter Labs team here around zkEVM and zkSync 2.0, which, if I remember from their last update, this is due later in the year, early next year, and we're going live in kind of like testnet fashion, as it already has, right, with kind of like Unisync here, and then mainnet as well. So the zkEVM, the zk rollup, or like the zk era, is basically begun. We're just like at the very, very early stages of it, but it's going to come much faster than everyone thinks. And some people say, oh well, doesn't this like obsolete optimistic rollups? Not at all. They can live in harmony together. And I think that on the optimistic rollup side as well, there's tons of kind of like upgrades and kind of like efficiency boosts coming there. But on top of that, the optimistic rollup teams are also looking at zk technology too as kind of like a longer term plan here. And we're just going to have so many of these solutions. It's going to be amazing. I fully expect these layer 2s to completely obsolete all the EVM side chains in the longer term, because at the end of the day, they can do more for less. They cost less to use. They can scale more. They can scale better. They're more sustainable, and they also inherit Ethereum security. So you get the best of basically all worlds. And I've talked about modular blockchains a ton on the Refuel over the past couple of weeks, so I won't go into that again. And Polynar is not actually featured in today's Refuel as well, because I think maybe at this point I'm kind of annoying you guys with how much I'm talking about modular blockchains, but this all falls into that. So keep an eye on how this ecosystem evolves over the next 6 to 12 months especially. It's definitely going to be a thing where EVM sidechains, unless they have like massive reward programs, they're just not going to get any traction anymore. And these layer ones are going to have to do something else to kind of get traction. I just don't see how users would prefer to use a sidechain where the fees are actually more expensive than using an Ethereum native layer 2 that not only inherits the security of Ethereum, but is cheaper than a sidechain. And they can scale much greater as well. And you also have all the premier apps too, because they're going to want to deploy onto these L2s before they deploy onto other chains or other kind of like EVM side chains and things like that. And some of you may be wondering what's going to happen to one of the most popular and Ethereum aligned side chains, the Polygon POS chain. As I've said before, I feel like they're working on Hermes, of course, which is a zkEVM kind of like roll up there. I feel like they've got two options, the same options that I mentioned before. They could either change the POS chain into a roll-up, do kind of like a state migration or something. I'm not exactly sure what they could do there or the technicalities of it, but I'm sure it's possible. Or they could just have like a migration process where they basically say to users, hey, the POS chain may be deprecated over time in favor of our new really fancy zkEVM roll-up, which basically offers you the same experience with much lower fees than what we have. I don't think that migration would happen very quickly. I think it would be a pretty slow process. So maybe they just find a way to upgrade the entire kind of like POS chain to a roll up, which would be really, really cool to see. But we'll have to kind of like see how that plays out there. So yeah, cool to see this here. And zkSync, one really cool thing about zkSync is that you don't actually need ETH to pay for gas fees on the network, even though basically ETH is paid to layer 1, of course, to secure zkSync. The end user doesn't need ETH. So gas in zkSync can be paid in any token with enough liquidity. So you can actually pay, in this demo that they did, they paid their token in USDC. So they paid the gas fee in USDC instead of ETH. Now, of course, they're always going to be paying ETH to layer 1. And if you want to pay in ETH, you can. But it's really cool that users have more options here, that they just aren't forced to pay in ETH, because a lot of the time, you may not have enough ETH in your wallet and you're like, oh God, I wish I could pay in just anything right now. It's just annoying having to get ETH from somewhere. And that's a major benefit to these sorts of things. And I'm sure a lot of the other L2s will do this as well. I'm hoping the Polygon POS chain does it too. But I mean, I mentioned the other day they had a thing where you can basically swap any of the token gas-free to Matic anyway. So, I mean, that's a good solution too. But just like abstracting away all this stuff from the end user is very, very important. And letting them pay in USDC or in DAI or any kind of like really liquid token for fees on the layer 2 is really great. Because in the background, the zkSync kind of operators, or kind of, I guess, the operators of the roll-up will just basically swap it for ETH and just, pay the ETH gas fees on layer 1, and it's all well and good. They handle it for the end user at the end of the day. All right, so a little update on Arbitrum. GnosisSafe is now live on Arbitrum One. So GnosisSafe, for those of you who don't know, is a multi-sig wallet that pretty much everyone uses, all the major projects use, and especially the ones that have multi-sigs attached to them. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal that it's live on Arbitrum is that all the DeFi projects that use GnosisSafe to manage their kind of like admin keys or kind of like multi-sigs for their protocols, they can now do the same thing for on layer 2 on Arbitrum, which is very important for some of these protocols to launch. I think Alchemix couldn't launch until this was in place, for example, and I think Alchemix also relies on other kind of like apps too. But just as an example, there are definitely a lot of apps out there that needed this. So really, really awesome to see this live on Arbitrum here. So I guess on the zkSync front as well, and on the Argent front, I think he's the head of product, Matt at Argent, basically teased today that he purchased crypto on zkSync with RampNetwork, which is like a fiat on ramp processor, using his Argent wallet. Funds received in less than 1 minute. Coming soon to a wallet near you. This is really the holy grail and what I've been talking about for such a long time now. Direct fiat on-ramp to layer 2. This is it. This is how you onboard the masses to Ethereum. Because, I mean, fiat on-ramp and exchange on-ramps directly to layer 2. Those are the two key plays here. Because at the end of the day, when people kind of first come into crypto and they buy something, we shouldn't be pushing them to layer 1 after they've bought it. They need to go to layer 2. Layer 1 Ethereum is not where end users are going to sit. That's not where they should be sitting at all. And I think it's just like a happy kind of like accident or coincidence. Maybe not coincidence, but it's just like a sign of like the layer 2 tech not being ready, that everyone was on Ethereum layer 1 over the past couple of years, and that's where all the activity exploded on. But that was never kind of like the place where people were going to be. So the faster we can get people onto layer 2, of course, and the faster we can get them directly on there through kind of like a fiat on-ramp, the better. So I'm really looking forward to this zkSync and Argent integration going live very soon. I've talked about it a lot. They've teased it a lot. I'm hoping it's coming soon because they're just teasing it even more lately. And I can't wait to use it, of course. So StarkWare have integrated Snapshot. So Snapshot, which is, I guess, like a governance platform, a voting platform that's used by pretty much like every major DeFi app, is coming to StarkNet very soon. Now, again, this is like the GnosisSafe multisig. This is critical infrastructure for a lot of these projects. This needs to be live for a lot of these projects to function, and being able to do governance at layer 2 is actually really cool, because what ends up happening is that the smaller users with smaller amounts of tokens can participate in this as well. And can actually, instead of having to kind of like bridge their tokens back to L1 to vote on things, they can just vote on it on L2 as well. Now with Snapshot, it doesn't actually take an on-chain transaction. It's just signing a message. So there's no real fees involved. But the thing is that if you're bridging in and out to do voting, and having to bridge to layer 1 to vote on things, and then go to layer 2 to do all your other stuff, well, then it just becomes a bit messy. So yeah, this is really cool to see from StarkWare here. Couple of updates from HopProtocol. So Zapper has now integrated Hop on Polygon. So users can now track their LP and staking positions through Zapper. And they're going to be adding support for Optimism, Arbitrum, and XDEFI next, hopefully on Zapper here, which is really cool to see. So you can see here in the screenshot that if you're an LP on Hop, you can see on Zapper your share of the pool if you're LPing kind of like on the Polygon side here. And the other update as well is that HopProtocol launched their first native bridge integration. So Polymarket users, which is a prediction market platform, can now withdraw their funds to a centralized exchange on Ethereum in one transaction without having to do a second hop on L1, which is really, really cool. So the thing is though, and as someone notes here, it's still a $53 transaction fee. Even though you can do this all in kind of like one transaction, there is still going to be an L1 transaction fee, because it still has to kind of like go through L1 to kind of like process to go to the exchange. Now, when the exchange eventually integrates like native kind of like L2 integration, they may eat the cost there on that as well. So it'll be fine from there, but still good to see just more of these kind of things being abstracted away from the user. So cool little updates from HopProtocol here. On to the next one. So there's an update from Umbra here, which is a privacy kind of like stealth payments protocol. So they just shipped a major upgrade, which drastically simplifies the setup process and greatly improves Umbra's user experience here. So Umbra is now out of beta with this, and stealth addresses on Ethereum are a go, according to them. So you can check out this this kind of like a blog post here for more details. You remember 4 months ago, Umbra launched on mainnet, and I would have covered it then on the refuel. I'm pretty sure I did cover it on the refuel there. So if you want to learn more about, I guess, like what what stealth payments are and everything there, you can visit their website here and check it all out. It's a really cool project. I mean, as I've said before, I'm really bullish on privacy on Ethereum, not just kind of like Tornado Cash and Aztec, but also, and EY Nightfall, but also things like Umbra for stealth payments and stuff like that. Really, really cool technology, and really advanced technology too. So definitely go check it out there. So there is currently a vote to onboard Lido's stETH token as a new vault type on Maker. So this would allow people that have stETH tokens to use it as collateral on Maker. So essentially, you're staking your ETH, you're using your staked ETH as collateral on Maker, and you can probably, you can draw a DAI and then do whatever you want with that DAI, whether that be yield farming for stable coins, or maybe buying more ETH and you can kind of do this kind of recursive kind of like farming here, where you essentially, I mean, it's a bit dangerous, right? But because you can get liquidated. But essentially, what you can do is you can kind of put your stETH in Maker, draw DAI, go buy more ETH or stETH, and then do it again, right? You can do this recursive stuff where you kind of like levered ETH staked. And yes, it's risky because you can get liquidated depending on what your liquidation price is and all that kind of stuff there. But, just thinking about it's kind of wild, right? All this kind of like composability thanks to DeFi. So I'm pretty sure this vote will pass given like how much demand there is for something like this. And I'm sure a lot of users will kind of get a lot of value out of this once it does pass and being able to kind of like do this stuff with stETH. And, I think that once Rocket Pool goes live, hopefully sooner rather than later, Maker will probably integrate ETH at some point as well. So yeah, having all these kind of like staking derivatives be integrated as a collateral type across not just Maker but other kind of like money market platforms and things like that, like Aave and Compound, would be really cool and give users more kind of like control over their assets here, which I think is really cool. All right, so another wallet enters the game here. So XDEFI wallet has gone live in kind of like a public release. And now there was a bit of controversy around this. So, I mean, XDEFI wallet is a browser extension wallet. You can download it for Chrome. I downloaded it, had a little bit of play around with it just late last night. But then I saw on Twitter this morning when I woke up a bit of drama around it. Now, fair warning here, this wallet is not open source. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is because this wallet is something that holds your funds, right? So you don't know that, because the source isn't open, you don't know if XDEFI or like the team behind it are harvesting private key, not private keys, the seed phrases, right? The seed phrase could be being sent to their server and they could be collecting them and, you wouldn't even know because it's not open source. So that's one kind of like vector there. But just in general, anything that holds user funds and that claims to be kind of like non-custodial and things like that needs to be open source. Like this isn't like a centralized exchange where users realize that, their funds are on Coinbase, so Coinbase is responsible for them. This is a kind of like a wallet that's claiming to, I guess, be a MetaMask competitor. MetaMask is totally open source. XDEFI wallet is not. So just want to give a fair warning there. And actually, thanks to that and them not open sourcing, I am not using this wallet at all right now. I used it, as I said, to just, I mean, I didn't even use it. I looked at it, I installed it, I looked at it, and I didn't put any funds in it. I'm just like, okay, this is cool. They have a few cool features going on. But other than that, I was kind of like, yeah, no, I'm not using this until they're open source. And I saw a few of the team members on Twitter. I didn't really like what they were saying, trying to justify the fact that they weren't open source. Obviously, they don't want to say the real reason. The real reason is because they think that someone's just going to copy what they're doing, fork their work and just like relaunch it, and that could happen, definitely, of course, but I think that worry is kind of like overblown, and I don't think it's something that I think that open sourcing your code is definitely is definitely worth it at the end of the day, worth the risk, especially because I know a lot of people just won't use it because of this. They've also got another feature that they kind of like introduced called ape mode, which is basically it's a proprietary gas algorithm. So I mean, this is how they describe it. So they say ape mode uses a proprietary gas algorithm to help ensure transactions get into the next block 99% of the time. Turn the ape mode toggle on and you won't miss a single NFT mint. So, I mean, essentially, what I assume they're doing here, and I have to assume because one, the algorithm's proprietary, and two, their code isn't open source. But what I assume they're doing here is that they're just setting the gas like really, really high for their users based on some algorithm that they've kind of like generated, which I'm sure is reading data from somewhere, probably directly from the mempool, to kind of like see, okay, well, these are all the transactions in there right now. Let's just, juice the kind of like the gas fee up really high so that our users don't miss NFT mints. Now, again, this is not just because they're not open source, but the fact that their gas algorithm is proprietary is another thing that kind of goes against the ethos of this space, and especially when it comes to wallets too. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a bit weird. Now, I don't want to say that the XDEFI team are bad actors or anything like that, and I know I'm kind of like giving them a hard time right now, but I think the fact of the matter is, if you're going to release a new crypto wallet, and especially something that tries to rival MetaMask and has all these fancy features, new features especially, you need to open source your code. And, the switching costs of wallets are actually pretty high. The reason I still use MetaMask, I mean, there's a few reasons I still use MetaMask. One, it's open source. It's been reviewed by, lots of different people. People trust it. It's secure. It's been secure for a very long time. Yes, its user interface sucks, but It's what we're all used to. It's what we're all used to using. It works with basically everything. It's like the default wallet, so it has to work with everything. And you know, it's just been around for a long time, so you can kind of like trust, know and you know about it, you trust it, and all that sorts of stuff. Whereas getting users to switch to something like this, especially when it's closed source, and especially kind of like being as new as it is, it's just going to take a little while to get users to switch. And maybe they'll onboard new users that haven't installed MetaMask before, like some other wallets out there. But generally, I would just like to see them open source their code. But still, great to see, I guess, more competition for MetaMask go live, because I think MetaMask definitely needs much more competition than what it has right now. But at the end of the day, maybe MetaMask just stays the way it is and stays kind of like this robust wallet that, okay, doesn't have the fanciest UX or UI, doesn't have like all the modern features or anything like that. But what it does give you is like an assurance that it's secure and it's trusted and it works everywhere. We need a wallet like that at the end of the day, right? So, but yeah, I mean, if you want to, you can go check out the XDEFI wallet, but if you want to play around with it, I would do it with small amounts. I just wouldn't trust this wallet until it's open sourced, because anything could be happening in the background. As I said, like worst case scenario, your seed phrase could be being sent to some server, being logged there, and then maybe they even if the XDeFi team didn't do it, maybe that server gets hacked and all those seed phrases get leaked and something really bad happens. So yeah, I mean that would be the worst case scenario. But just figured I'd give a fair warning to anyone wanting to check this out. Just don't put too many funds in it, and you shouldn't put too many funds in kind of like these hot wallets anyway. You should be passing through with a hardware wallet. I know there's been a bit of drama around that because of like Chrome updates and MetaMask not working with Ledger sometimes, and then having to do pass-throughs through Ledger Live. But still, I mean, those headaches are worth not getting all your funds stolen, right? But yeah, anyway, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.